I'm Pilar Bewley, and I want to welcome you to another episode of 52 Positive Discipline Tools for Homeschoolers. Today, we're going to be talking about flipping our lid. Now, what does it mean to flip your lid? Well, technically, you say you flip your lid when you're angry or frustrated, you lose your temper, right? But there's a kind of a scientific reason why we may use that term. So take a look at my hand here. Did you know that in our hand we have a model of the brain that's in our heads? And I want to show you today how to use it. So if you look at my hand, we have this part right here. And this part is called the brain stem. Now this is a 300 million year old part of our brain, right? This is kind of like our reptilian brain. This is where the fight, flight, freeze, or faint happens. So let me give you an example. The other day I was getting some dental work done, and the anesthesiologist came with his little syringe to give me a shot to numb my gums. And while he was doing it, even though I couldn't feel anything because it was already kind of numb, my heart was pounding, I was sweating, and I was even starting to lose my vision, right? I was so nervous just from the thought of getting that shot. Well, that was this part of the brain in action, right? This was the fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Now, if you flip your thumb over and put it in front of your palm, then you have the limbic part of your brain. Now, the limbic part of your brain is in charge of your emotions. It's in charge of when you're angry, frustrated, sad, happy, excited, surprised. All of those emotions are right here in your limbic brain. Now, this part is 200 million years old, right? And so it's part of our mammalian brain that goes back to when we evolved from the earliest mammals. So it's right here. And now, do you see my fingers up here? This is the cortex, right? And the cortex means like a cover. And what the cortex does is it gives us signals from the outside world. It helps us to connect our inside world, our emotions, to our outside world. Now, the back part of the cortex is where we process what we see. The side of the cortex is where we process what we hear. And the front part of the cortex is a really, really important part. Have you heard of the phrase prefrontal cortex? Well, that's right here. And what the prefrontal cortex does is it helps integrate everything. So it helps to make sure that your entire brain is working together so that what you are hearing and seeing and feeling and reacting to is all together, right? And so this is what your brain looks like when you are calm, rested, well-fed, and are feeling secure. This is your brain. If you think about it, my brain being inside my head, this is where your prefrontal cortex would be, right? Now, what happens when you feel threatened, when you feel that something is not right, when those stories start going in your head and things are just not going according to plan? Want to see what happens? You flip your lid, right? So that term, I flip my lid, this is what happens. Now, when your lid is flipped or when your child's lid is flipped, can you reason? No, you can't, because your prefrontal cortex is offline. So the only things that are working are your emotions. And so, I'm feeling so angry. Or this reptilian brain, right? That fight, flight, freeze, or faint response. And so that's why when your child is in the middle of a meltdown, all they're doing is functioning right here. They're feeling all the emotions. They're making all of these reactions that have nothing to do with the calm, reasoning mind, and everything to do with either wanting to fight the situation or run away from the situation or just hide and shut down. And hopefully they won't faint. But what we need to think about is that when we try to reason with them, when we try to talk to them, when they're in this situation, it's not going to work. Our children are not going to listen to us. And I'm sure that you've seen that, and you've probably thought, why can't they just listen? Why can't they just be reasonable? Why do they have to scream or throw things or run away? This is why. This is why. And so when our child is like this, or when we are like this, because we flip our lid too, the first thing that we need to do is help our brain to integrate again. And there are many ways to help our child and to help ourselves integrate our brain, bring down our prefrontal cortex, and help us get to a point where we can actually reason and we can actually think and talk through and find solutions to our problems. We're going to be exploring a lot of different ways to reintegrate the brain, but for now, what I want you to do are two things. Number one, I want you to help your child to learn about this hand model, and you can explain it as simply as I explained it to you, just using your hand. And this is going to become a really great tool for when you are feeling frustrated or when they are feeling frustrated. So this is a hand signal that you can use when you're feeling frustrated and you don't even have the words to say how you're feeling. You can just say this and your child will know, oh, mom flipped her lid, let's give her some time to calm down. Or if your child is flipping their lid, you can say, hey, are you having a flipped lid moment? And then your child might realize that what they need to do is come up with a strategy to help them reintegrate their brain. So that's the first thing that I want you to do. And the second thing that I want you to do is to start thinking about what things help you to reintegrate your brain, to bring down your prefrontal cortex, and try them. When I started homeschooling my children, they started fighting a lot. They weren't used to being home together. They weren't used to sharing toys and sharing mom. And so they were fighting all the time. And I just couldn't stand it. Whenever they were fighting, I would flip my lid. I felt responsible and I felt hopeless. And so I would flip my lid. And so what I told my children was, whenever I see you fighting, I feel really frustrated and really helpless. And so what I need to do when I'm like this is to go calm down. And so when I hear you fighting, I'm going to go upstairs to my room and I'm going to sit in my room for a few minutes, take a few deep breaths so I can bring my prefrontal cortex back down and then help you solve the problem. So one day I was doing the laundry and my kids were playing, so I thought it was a great time to just take all the laundry upstairs and start putting mine away. So I went upstairs and I did that, and after a while my son called down and he said, Mommy, you can come down now, Nadia and I are done fighting. And so it was really funny because I didn't even know that they had been fighting, but they thought that I was upstairs regulating my own brain to then come downstairs and help them deal with their situation. And so when you can model that for your children and when you can find strategies that work for you, it helps you to regulate again, and it helps your children to understand that flipping your lid is a totally normal behavior and that there are tools that we can use to reintegrate, to bring it back down so that then we can find solutions. Let me know how it goes, and I will see you next week in another episode. Have a great week.